Yeah, yeah. Okay. Namaste. Thank you for coming. Good morning. Namaste. Welcome. We can begin with a prayer and a few minutes of meditation, just silence. Thank you for coming. So I'll say a prayer. You're welcome to join to sing with me. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is beautiful prayer which is taken from the Upanishads. It means lead me from untruth to truth. It's a prayer to God. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from the cycles of death to immortality. Peace, peace, peace unto us all. So I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm just a student of life and learning, so I don't present as myself as any expert. So hope you don't look an expert in me. But I like to have conversation about these topics, which is what brings me here. And one of the context, the story of blind man and elephant. Whatever we say or speak is our perspective. And the truth is much bigger than that always. But we present the perspective and we try to make sense of it, try to match with our perspective to make greater sense. And if our perception increases a little bit more, then it's a benefit. So we have the choice to pick whatever we think is useful. So please treat whatever I'm sharing as one perspectives. If you like it, that's God's grace. And if you don't, I will learn something new. Thank you for coming. So today's topic is the philosophy of yoga and how does that translate to our life. And usually when we study the scriptures, and also I'm reminded recently that, a couple of days later, there's Gita Jayanti. So Gita was uttered, and it's a great message for all of us. And so the principles of 4 yogas are actually coming from the Bhagavad Gita. So we also remember that today, and we thank the Lord and the Masters who brought the Bhagavad Gita to all of us. And it is not just for Hindu tradition, it's for everyone. So the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 18 chapters, and about 6 chapters are Karma Yoga, the next 6 chapters are Bhakti Yoga, the last 6 chapters are the Jnana Yoga. So, and Vivekananda, who, there's a lot of bhashyas, which means commentaries on these scriptures, and Vivekananda had a commentary on it, which he brought a 4th yoga, which is the Raja Yoga, the meditation, the Dhyana Yoga. And he said, so these are the 4 yogas, and what I wanted to reflect on is many of especially those who are learning about Hinduism or Eastern philosophy, and they see yoga as, obviously there is a lot of people who practice yoga, and many people think yoga is just doing exercises, stretching. But obviously yoga is much more than that. It's philosophy, it's spirituality, but the people who dig into scriptures, they see there are 4 different yoga paths. So today we will be discussing, are there really 4 paths? Like, is there Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and meditation? Are there 4 different paths? Because many times we feel like, you know what, for me, the Karma Yoga works better. So I'm not interested in going to temples and showing devotion because I'm busy with my work, and I take my work as my worship. That's one way of looking at it. Some people say, no, I have to go do my bhakti, and if I do bhakti, I don't have to worry about everything else. God will take care of everything. many of the intellectual types, like the way I grew up, who went to college and studied a lot, thinks that, oh, by intellectual discussion, understanding, reflection, we could learn a lot. And maybe that's the way to get to know the truth. And Swami Vivekananda also talked about meditation. So the meditation has been there embedded in every scripture that we read. Sometimes it's explicit, sometimes it is implicit, but is that the path? So we will reflect on a little bit on everything and try to make sense that is there 4 separate yogas or is one yoga? I think many of you probably have an opinion because you've been studying this for a long time. So this could be a collective reflection. And I'll put my few points together and then we can have a Q&A at the end. So does that sound reasonable? This is the topic. So we begin we begin with a prayer. So let us sit quietly for 2 minutes to pray to the Lord, or just experience the silence within us, and we spend some time with ourselves. So, are you looking for some help?
Please continue.
All right.
There's one there.
But I think that will how I would have to put it.
And usually things that in the wall.
It's a wall, yeah. That's what that.
Right there.
Oh, but that one is not
Sets it up on
You
the-
need a long extension wire.
No, it usually sets it up on the stage, so it's sideways, not on the edge.
Okay.
There's a plug on the stage. There's a plug on the stage too. You see right behind her, there's a plug. That metal thing. There you go.
No, yeah. So you need any help from ours,
No,
or
no.
should we just continue?
Yeah, please
Okay,
continue.
great. Okay. So what we will do is we'll sit quietly, just relax. Just relax your body. Try to find a still pose in which you can sit for next few minutes. And just close your eyes. And you can just repeat God's name or a mantra that's meaningful to you. And keep gazing in front of you with your eyes closed. You'll just experience some stillness. In the middle of the darkness, you may experience some light. Whatever happens, just continue gazing and continue repeating the word of God. So we'll sit for a couple minutes and I'll get started now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so those who just joined, we are speaking on the 4 paths of yoga. And are there 4 paths, or is it just one? Let's reflect on the definition of yoga. Yoga in literal terms means union. In the philosophical term, yoga is used to describe the merger of part with the whole. Like a drop of the rain into the ocean. Whole is here referred to God Almighty, and part is referred to us, or our soul, or our true nature. Now, that's just an analogy so that we can understand the ocean and the drop, but truly God is infinitely big, it's infinitely powerful, it is all powerful, all knowing, complete in all aspects is what we call God. Nothing lacking in God. On the other hand, soul, it also has the same characteristics, but in addition to that, it is also having this awareness of us as ego, as I am different from you or you. So that aspect separates us from God, and this whole life of human being is said to be bridging that gap of knowing who we are. Now, spiritually speaking, that is not just a philosophical question, it's an experience to be had. We want to not just believe in it that, okay, yes, we believe that we are soul, and we believe that there is God, and we believe that spiritual path suggests that we experience it. We work on experiencing it. And how do you experience it? Through our action, through our intellectual knowledge, through our love and devotion, and through our meditation. That's why we talk about the four aspects. So let's reflect a little bit more on spiritual aspect. The scriptures and many paths, many saints and mystics who are the knowledgeable from different traditions. It's very interesting to note that even though many of the traditions who look different and have labeled difference, like even within the Hindu traditions, there are so many sects and so many paths of thinking, philosophies. But beyond that, there is Sikh philosophy, Jain philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, and you go into West, there's Christianity, there's Islam, there's Judaism. And you notice that there is some similarity, there's some commonness in many of this. So I'm going to reflect on two definitions. We all talk about merging with God, or connecting with God, or being with God. In the Eastern tradition, we call it moksha. Moksha is the ultimate goal of our human life. In the West, we call liberation. In the yogic tradition, we call realization, that self-realization or God realization. In just a philosophical terms, just shifting our attention from this identity that we have, what we call I, to an identity which is, where is God? So there is few terms which is very well understood and very well known and very lot spoken about. It's called, like one of the term, it's called the Mahavakya, it's called Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi is a term that is used in the Hindu, in yoga philosophy, to describe the unity of Atman as an individual soul with Brahman, the absolute. It is typically translated as I am Brahman, or I am the divine. Similar Mahavakyas are Tattvamasi. So when the master is telling the disciple, he's saying you or that, which is same translation as I am Brahman, you are also Brahman. Another term is called Soham. Soham also reflects I am that. Now, what is that? What is God? And how powerful, how big it is? It's very, everybody agree to this point, that it is beyond the description. So we do not have to argue this. At least it is, we know that it is so vast and so powerful. It is difficult to describe or impossible to describe. Kabir, one of the great saints, who says, if I take all the earth and make a paper out of it, and take all the trees and make the pencils, Imagine all the trees of the earth, make its pen, take all the ocean and make its ink, and then write it on. I still not have enough to write about God. He actually talks about Guru, but he's referring to Guru and God as one concept at that time. So you can just, this is good enough to understand that it is an infinitely large concept that so every description could add up to say, yes, that is as a loving father. That's great. Somebody say, no, it's loving mother. That's also good. He's a friend. Okay, we agree with that also. You can say he's the all creator, all take care of everything. He's just disconnected from everything. That's true also. And so if you is infinite in space, infinite in time, so you keep describing and it all adds up and there is no conflict, right? It's something is so large, so infinite. Your experience of that is true because that's what your experience is. So there's nothing to conflict. That's where the philosophy of the blind man and the elephants come. This is so huge. Whatever our experience is true. However, I want to emphasize on the elements that we can experience. So that's what we can talk about. We can talk about few things. For example, is God all truth? That's one aspect that we can discuss and experience. God is all truth. What is truth? Something never changes. Something that is eternal. Obviously, nothing changes. So it never was born, never changes, never will die. It will remain same all throughout. It's also very powerful and persistent. It's always there. It doesn't go away. It's very powerful. The other aspect we can say is unconditional love. Now, we all know conditional love. We all probably have either love pizzas or ice creams or chocolates or love our fellow beings in our family. But this is talking about unconditional love. The love that never changes. What do you expect from something that doesn't change? It's unconditional love. The unconditional love can, at least some glimpses can be experienced in life, if not the whole unconditional love. We do experience unconditional love from those who love us tremendously, like our mothers, or the closest example you can think about. In the Hindu tradition, at least, the mother is given a very high respect because they are ready to sacrifice their life. They will not think about sex. Fathers also given similar, but they come after mother. So this is to be experienced. We're talking about the experiences. The other experience we have is purity. Now purity is, now obviously there's chastity, there's thinking about bad things, not thinking about bad things. But a simple analogy I can think about is it's like a childlike, a pure child. A child who's born is pure. That is why in the Eastern tradition, many who worship Lord Krishna in this child form. Because that's easy to relate to a child as a pure. Not only is all loving and all truth, it's also childlike. Ultimate father is also the ultimate child. Like a child, there's innocence is what you can call it. No other element is there, it's innocence. The other characteristic we can think about is oneness. What is God? We consider God is not separate. It is there. It's within us. It's in everything. So what are the characteristics we talk about? God is oneness. God is all. And Shankaracharya, and we have heard Dr. Ram Bachchan here many times, is the philosophy of Advaita, which means it's only one. And now everything else is the manifestation of that one. So oneness, how do we experience the oneness? When we see somebody who's different, but we still connect. I see that you are from a different country, I see maybe you're following different religion, maybe different philosophy, but still we connect. I see the same essence in you that I see in me. And that's an experience to have about God, and we can say, well, that is God. Like, if I see the connection with everyone, irrespective of they look different or they think different or we think they are different. and we see the connectedness. The another aspect of God we can reflect on is consciousness, awareness, right? We become aware of many things, and we can attribute that to our consciousness. Where is the consciousness coming from? So God is all consciousness, all knowing, all aware. One of the aspects in yoga tradition we talk about is awareness, and especially in the Buddhist mindfulness, we talk about awareness. Everything is just awareness. You can see, you can separate with the awareness. You can separate you from what is out there. That's not you. You are just the awareness, and that's an experience we all can have. We can all reflect on that. In the meditation, some of the masters will say, yeah, just aware, you just watch. Oh, my mind runs around. Okay, just watch. So some of the Upanishads talk about the state of sleeping and dreaming and awaken and deep sleep. It says, but everything in all of those states, what is common is awareness. So that's we can experience that. The other, if you put it all together, this like all truth, unconditional love, purity, consciousness, connectedness, it comes together to what we call human being. That's human being, or being human, is the pinnacle of all these characteristics. We don't have to go too far. So the saints and mystics says, where is God? Now, where do you go to experience this? You experience all of these characteristics within you. You don't have to go somewhere. It's not that you have to go to the mountain and then you go to the mountain to just get away from the distractions so that you can meditate. That's fine. But you have to reflect on it, to experience. In the Eastern philosophy, we call the human body is the highest temple. God resides in the body. God resides in everything, but we can experience in our body. I cannot go in your body and experience. I cannot go somewhere in the water and experience. I cannot go in the mountain or the caves. I can come to the temple and I see everybody's trying to experience it, and that creates a great atmosphere. I see everybody's worshiping, and so it is great atmosphere. It is very conducive for learning, but ultimately I have to experience myself within my body. True? So that leads us to different paths of knowing. So the journey of human being with the saints and mystics through the scriptures and through their satsangs and through their discourses, they all telling us that we as human being need to experience ourselves as who we truly are, which is the Almighty God. And if we don't experience this in this lifetime, we have missed the opportunity. So not only we can experience, that's a privilege we as human beings have. We have the capacity, we have all the tools and faculties available in the human existence. We also have a limited time. So there's urgency. Now obviously God is infinite, and ultimately the merger will happen. It's just it's supposed to happen, right? Because it's like every drop that leaves the ocean through evaporation ultimately makes the journey back to us, right? I mean, you can look at the philosophy of it or just look at the science of it. Every drop that goes up, fall maybe on a mountain, maybe in the form of a snow. Maybe the snow will be there for years, sometimes hundreds of thousands of years, but somewhere it melts, gets into the stream. Maybe it will go into somebody's house or gutter, or some animal will drink it again. It will go through many cycles. Eventually it will get to the ocean, right? So our soul will eventually get to the ocean. But the saints and mystics are saying us that why suffer through many cycles of life and death? Why go through that? So they say 8.4 million species that we might cycle through. If you let this body go, the next body may or may not be human being, and therefore your soul experience will continue. So the saints and mystics saying, well, you have the human body right now. It's a great opportunity to experience that, and you have everything. So all you need to do is work on it. which is why we are actually born. And if you reflect a little bit more deeper, is the soul is making the journey, is given this opportunity to say, okay, now do you want to know yourself? This is the opportunity. So even the human being maybe the most crooked person, and you may say, oh, it's only for good people, right? Well, who's good and bad is not our judgment. Even you've heard stories after stories after stories. Even the worst person turned into a spiritual master, like Maharishi Valmiki, who wrote the Ramayana. And in the Buddhist tradition, there is a story of Angulimal. I mean, these stories are embedded in every tradition. You can find out that someone was so bad, but then they had a turnaround, almost a U-turn. And then they worked on it. So everyone has the opportunity. There is no exception. As long as we work on it, we can. So the purpose of this life is to achieve this union or the yoga. And these are the kind of the milestones or the guiding principles of all truth, unconditional love, purity, oneness, consciousness. If we put together is what we want to experience. That is our experience. We still cannot describe God. Even the saints and mystics say, end of the day, you know exactly how it is, and let me tell you that. No, they say, I have some experience of it, and here it is, but it is infinite. The words are not sufficient to describe it. So there's another beautiful reflection here, you know, in the Rig Veda. It says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. It's kind of embedded in one of the verses. It's not even full verse itself. But it says that there's only one truth. And the saints and mystics call in different terms, different words, different names, in different ways. They'd explain in different terms. But it's all one. There's only one truth. So just reflect on one truth. Right? We are here to realize that one truth. And that is what, if you is the summum bonum of all the scriptures, is how do I realize that one truth? And that's what we call the yoga. And so how does that reflect when we say, okay, so what is karma yoga and what is the Bhakti yoga and the Gyana yoga and the Raj yoga? What is how they relate to this one yoga? So that's one philosophical way of looking at it. When we reflect on our lives, many of us think that, you know, I need to get, I know what purpose of my life is. So let's go through the, are they separate? Are they separate path? Like, is there a choice that you can say, I'm just going to follow the karma yoga and I'm going to get to the goal? Or am I just going to follow the jnana yoga and get to the goal? So, if you reflect a little bit on, in the initial spiritual development of us being, and I have gone through that initial development, or maybe still going through it, it appears to me that karma yoga is my duties. Doing it well is good enough. I'm a person of action. And I want to see the results. I mean, what's the point if you don't show the result, right? That's how we all think. If I go to work, if I don't get the salary, well, it's not worth it. If I don't become successful in my job, I mean, what's the point of, you know, if you take away those things, then everything else doesn't matter. So, person of action thinks that God is in action. Even in some of the philosophical traditions, like the farmer who is producing grains thinks that is God. I work hard, I sweat, I don't care about God at all because you won't have the food. You know, how about you take that away? So absolutely true, right? So that is, at the initial development, it seems that doing the duty is good enough, doing it right is good enough. The people who are following the Gyana Yoga side says, I want to understand intellectually. I want to go to the library. I want to read it. I want to know exactly what words is saying what, who said it, when they said it, what they meant, understanding in a logical discussion. The people who follow the Bhakti Yoga thinks, if I put love in my action, if I believe in myself, I devote to any cause, that is good enough. And many of you see around us, we pick a cause and say, okay, now if I don't have to learn this yoga and everything, I'm serving, let's say, uneducated poor in India. That's great. Are they wrong? No. That's absolutely true. Go into the Dhyana Yoga, the meditate. Says all I have to do is close my eyes and experience calm and peace in myself. And if I am peaceful, everything is fine. I don't have to worry about knowing the truth. I just want to meditate and be peaceful. Those are the initial stages of conversation. But as we practice any of this path, we start going on any of this path, as we grow spiritually, then what happens? So I'm going to describe as intermediate stage of all of four development. So what the karma yogis start thinking, well, many times I do action and I don't get the results. How can I be peaceful without the results? Or I don't even know if sometimes the results are right or wrong. I may feel it is wrong, but sometimes the results are right. They show up their consequences sometime later. So you realize that, and if you read the scriptures, they say, how can I work without attaching to myself to the result? How can I be at peace? So you start doing the action, but now the additional component is, okay, I'll do my action and then whatever happens, happens. I'll go to work, I'll do my best project, whether the company becomes successful or fail, it doesn't matter. Things will happen, it'll work out at the end. As long as I put the right thing. So that's a little bit evolved, right, from the action. What is the Gyana Yogis thinks? Oh, well, I have studied all the scriptures and I find finally that everything is within me, because all the books are saying everything is within you. And so I should more focus on the intrinsic knowledge, not the exoteric knowledge. Does that make sense? So we are then, as an intellectual, as an evolved intellectual, you realize that what matters is the inner knowledge, the intrinsic knowledge, the esoteric knowledge. In the Eastern tradition called the Paravidya, the knowledge of the beyond, which cannot be found in the books. You read books and at the end of the book they'll say, okay, now you got to experience it. Go within. Meditate. Go within. Know yourself. In fact, you already know it. So get out of the way. So that's an intellectual progress from, I want to read the scriptures. The Bhakti Yoga start developing faith, because now they're putting love in action. They see that in true sense, the true devotion comes when I realize that I'm not the doer, God is the doer. And therefore, I should just do my best and put my love in front of everything, whatever I do. The person who is the Dhyana Yogi says, now when I concentrate within, I start experiencing the inner region. I can experience that the mind is just a layer within me. It's not the whole thing. It is just a layer. And everything that I'm experiencing is through my mind is subjected to illusion. Therefore, I need to still my prajna, I need to still my attention and practice meditation more. And practice meditation with the purpose of knowing myself, not with just the peace, not with just the calm. I know, and there's nothing wrong with meditating for stress relief, medical benefits. Blood sugar, I need to meditate, I need to calm down. So there's nothing wrong with it, but as you meditate, as you go on this path, you realize that I need to experience something beyond the mind, because as long as I have the mind with me, it's creating stress in me. So let's continue. What happens when they reach even the higher stage? And I'm not saying final stage, but highest stage. The karma yogi starts thinking, he's not the doer at all. Who's doer? Yes, it appears that I go to work, or I go and do this, I do the social service, I go to the temple, volunteer, I go change people's life. The true karma yogi thinks is not the doer. Right? The doer is the God within, and I happen to be just experiencing it. And in the Bhagavad Gita, that in whether you achieve the success or failure, if you keep your steadfast attention in your duties and detach yourself from results, that's the highest karma yoga. right? The Gyana Yogi says the knowledge is not only within, but it's second nature of a realized soul. It's spontaneous. There is no need to be doing any effort. Those who are enlightened, you go to them and you ask them, like, do they read any scriptures any further? I mean, they do, but they know that everything is within. It's all spontaneous. It should become effortless. Like a child knows everything. And I'll tell you a small story that my wife shared with me while we were driving here. So we do this meditation in our meditation center, and we invite families with children who come. The children also meditate. So we used to have a lower limit of 5 years or 6 years for children to come and meditate. And so recently my wife said, no, I want to take care of those toddlers because they're just running around, they don't know what to do. And so she opened another section for the toddlers. Now, imagine a toddler could be anywhere from 6 months to 5 years. Now, what do you expect them to meditate, right? So they just have the concept of becoming quiet for, a minute or two. And I'll let you speak at the end if you want to add anything to it. But basically, it's a wonderful thing where the parents are drawn to bring their children, and they're saying, okay, if my child can sit for, like a 2-year-old or 1.5-year-old can sit for 30 seconds without disturbing anyone, that's a great meditation. So they bring, and we invite them, we tell them stories, and we have fun time, so they feel engaged. So we're not meditating with them for an hour or something. That's the adults trying to do. But the child are just being there, and they just be told, like, okay, when the parent meditate, let them meditate for 30 seconds or a minute. And so this, she told the story of one parent who told us that one day they were coming to the sasana. Now they don't talk to the child. It's a 1.5-year-old child, about 18, 19-month-old child. And they don't tell them, okay, we're going to meditation. They just bring the child, put in the car, in the drive, and every week probably they do every day same thing, right? So one day the child, the car was turning towards the center, and the child cried happily, joyfully. So this is a parent telling. So the parent told her that the child is aware that there is going to be meditation. And just got joyfully, is happy. Not telling, there's no words to describe the happiness. It's just shouting and is joyfully, and it kind of reflected that I know where we're going. So the parents, the mother especially, is a good reader. So you can see that, it touched my heart actually. Look, a child is also aware. He just doesn't have the language, doesn't have the words, doesn't have the intellectual evolution to communicate better, but the awareness is there. The soul is not changing. Even though our bodies changes as we were born, the soul is exactly the same awareness. We just don't have the faculties to, talk intellectually. And same with the old age. In the old age, our bodies may not be able to travel. We may be sitting in the bed or sitting in our home in the corner, but we are fully aware. The soul is aware. And so that's the knowledge that we are talking about, the spontaneous knowledge. So we're very happy that, we're allowing these children to, or their parents to experience. The children already learn it actually. We actually make them unlearn. Yes.
So what is your view of people that have dementia and soul awareness?
So the soul is aware, absolutely. The consciousness is aware. It's just that don't have the mind, the mind, the brain. The brain is the hardware that the mind needs. I mean, I see because my eyes are there, and that's where I can communicate to you. What if my eyes were not there? Even though the mind is there, it's probably not getting the inputs to analyze things. So if the eyes become sick or the body becomes sick, then the information doesn't go to the brain. The brain becomes sick, then the mind is deprived of that information, and the behavior we call the person is sick. We have all kinds of names, dementia, it could be any mental diseases, but the soul is still there and aware. Soul is above and beyond, it's completely disconnected from this. The soul is experiencing this, what we may call as a painful life. and the saints and mystics look at us and say, you're living a painful life because you're unaware. So we think, oh, they are living a painful life, but maybe they're actually, the soul may be happy, maybe they're just wrapping up their karma. So we are experiencing their karma. It's based on what our previous life is, but the soul is completely disconnected and completely aware. Isn't that?
Very interesting.
Yeah. That's why we are. I mean, not only the parents, but we are supposed to treat everyone equally and lovingly because the same soul in them.
So, given your philosophy, you could say someone that's experiencing Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever, that maybe the soul is just taking up more real estate, and maybe that explains what's going on, because their brain is shutting down because they're focused on their soul, as they're getting more towards enlightenment. Does that make any sense?
No, I would not necessarily characterize that enlightenment about it, but the soul is observing. Soul is the awareness. In this human life, those who can, which most of us can, spend time to shift our awareness from the body to the soul. So work out of the identity of the soul is all awareness, and then we exhibit these 5 characteristics we talked about: unconditional love, connectedness, bliss, and so on. But if we identify ourselves with body, then we experience, oh, body is suffering, that means I'm suffering. Body is having temperature, so I'm sick. Body is throwing up, so I'm sick. Challenged with the body, but I'm at peace. So those who shift their attention and are able to do this in this lifetime, and many people do, and you can see that as they go towards the death, they are at peace. That's why, in our many traditions, in the Hindu tradition, they said those who are able to remember God at the end are the ones which are on the right track. Why? Because they have the stillness to remember it even in the time of pain and suffering and while their body is going away, because they have worked all their life to detach from the body, to realize that they're soul, and therefore it doesn't affect them as much as if somebody will say, oh, if I'm only the body and the body is decaying, oh my God, what's next? So all kinds of fears and all kinds of suffering then creep in, even though it's not necessary, even though that's not true. It's just an illusion. It's like you go to a movie theater and then for 2-3 hours you think that's real. But even if the worst movie, you realize it's just a movie. It's just going to be over and I will be fine. I'm not in that. It's exactly like the soul is watching this movie, or you can call it the state of dream. This is having experience. And like this dream will be over and then the soul will wake up to be the astral plane and say, oh, that life, that was just an experience, but I'm here. Fine. And then the astral experience, there's another causal us. So the saints and mystics describe that we exist in the layers. And there are four layers, which is kind of broadly talked about: the physical, the astral, the causal, and the supercausal, and then the truth. It's all truth. So just the body consciousness, rising above the body consciousness is not enough. You may still be under the trap of emotional and the mind. So therefore the journey has to be spiritual. That's why we talk about the yoga means the ultimate, the merger with the ultimate truth, not like just rising above the body. That's just a step one. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but what you're suggesting is, if somebody is suffering through disease, is he really suffering? It depends on their spiritual evolution. And they may be suffering if they're not evolved. They may associate themselves with the body. But if they have evolved themselves over the period, then they just see this as a passing storm. And that's what we are trying to get this data. Does that make sense?
Some people say the dementia is more affects the family, and then the person experiencing it may be totally happy in it.
True, absolutely true. Because the other family have to take care of them physically and have to, change their schedule and change their priorities, and that's the problem.
And then they don't recognize them.
They don't recognize them. They may be fine and be at peace. So, but the question is, we can't assume in one way or the other. It's for us, we have to see that so that I can be at peace all the time, no matter what. I have to work to do the practices of yoga, which is meditation, devotion, doing my duties correctly, and so on. So let me just wrap up this, because the last point is the meditation, the highest experience of meditation is exactly, you know, the journey. And you experience that light in meditation. You experience that who you are. And, you know, it's not a philosophical question. So I'm very fortunate to learn the technique of meditation, where you not only just know as an intrinsic knowledge, but you experience it. You experience that light. You experience the inner realms that the saints describe, that this is physical plane, there's an astral plane, which is a subtle plane, which is also within us. It's not outside of us, it's right within. We're already having, there's a Hindu scripture that talks about the 5 shells. So we're experiencing these 5 shells. So the meditator start noticing the higher and higher shell. Astral, the causal. I see I'm a causal body, I'm the cause, but there's another body which is super causal, the cause of the cause. And then there is all truth, which is all love, all truth, which we call the highest state of awareness. So if you look at all these evolved yogas, they're all merging together. They're all coming together to realize that I am that. So these 4 paths to me are not distinct, separate. They're more like 4 wheels of a car that all needs to run. Or you can say, since we talked about the elephant analogy, they are the 4 legs of the elephant on which it walks. As we grow spiritually, and no matter how we started, where we start, it's like climbing to the Mount Everest. If you may start from Nepal, you may start from China, you may start from other place. Now obviously there'll be one easier path and one will be lightly difficult. That's why certain people go certain proven paths. But eventually when you grow up, it's all one. It's all the peak of the Everest. And the experiences can be described in 4 aspects. So instead of, to me, calling the 4 paths, I would rather call them 4 aspects. It's like a diamond, it has 4 facets. You may have a favorite facet because that's how you see your life. There's nothing wrong in any path. In fact, the Hindu traditions and the Eastern is great. In fact, how many paths are there? As many people. As many people, because each one, even though you may be going to the same temple, you may be having, you call yourself the same religion, but you may be having your own journey, your own trajectory. And so what's important is follow that trajectory towards the goal. What's important is direction. What's important is the ultimate purpose, not how it unfolds. And so sometimes the work is important, sometimes the devotion is important. And all of the 4 aspects of the facets need to work together so we can reach the goal. And I'd like to conclude. There are many ways to describe the philosophy. So since it is infinite, it's very interesting. I was just researching to say how many, is it 4 or 5 or 6? So, in the Ramayana, they talked about the Ravana as the 10 emotions. So you may say, Ravana, the goal at the Ramayana time was to overcome the 10, and you can research, Google it, whatever. It's the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, which means lust, anger, greed, attachment, arrogance, jealousy, mind, intellect, consciousness, ego. Rising above the 10 emotions to get to God. So that's the Ramayana time. Then further, Purana's time, they started describing the 9 nidhis, or the 9 treasures. The 9 planets. And there are many ways to split it up. The planet has their own effect. So the people who are, like my father was an astrologer, he liked to research the future. And the planets are telling you the story. So that's one way to do. There's 8 siddhis. The yogic path, the tantric or the yogic path says the 8 siddhis. And that's also like anima, mahima, garima, lagima, prapti, if you're interested in those research. So there are 8 siddhis, and the Patanjali said about the 8-fold path of knowing the truth. Or in the Western tradition, they call overcoming 7 deadly sins. So you see how that's progressing? So it's 6 or 7. There are 6 laws of mind also talked about. That's one way of looking at it. There are panchakoshas I talked about. Panchakoshas or the 5 elements. Rising above the 5 elements, or the panchakosha, which is the 5 bodies. Like the 5 koshas are the physical, the astral, the causal, and the supercausal, and the truth. 4 yogas we just talked about today, or 3 gunas. There's another way to philosophy to say rising above the 3 gunas. Slowly, if you keep evolving, you notice that rising above all of these differences to be one. And ultimately, in practical, I'll conclude with the practical, and then we'll meditate for 10 minutes, hopefully. Ultimately, there is only 2 things happening. One is your effort, and the next is the grace. Grace. Grace of God. So effort and grace. My spiritual teacher talks about it like, you can do effort in the right direction. Meditate, do your job, have love and devotion in your heart. Practice knowledge and go through intellectual learning because they're necessary. Nobody can say intellectual is bad. It's necessary. We need some intellectual so we can practice, so that when we practice we experience, so we develop love for it, and then we practice more. The cycle continues. And therefore, ultimately it boils down to one thing, that is your effort. Say that, if I meditate, I have to experience light. Maybe you want to experience light for a few weeks or days. Whenever you do, that's the grace. And so one starts recognizing the grace element. The fact that we are human beings is a tremendous grace. The saints and mystics talk about the fact that we could be in any other shape and form, and we may have no opportunity to evolve ourselves to the Brahman experience, but we're very lucky that we're human beings. So let us use this opportunity. Do your effort, the grace will come, but God's will. And in the aspect of spirituality, we learn to accept God's will. So that will conclude my lecture. So ultimately it boils down to the effort and grace. The more effort you put in, the grace more comes. The more grace you come, you are able to put more effort, and the cycle completes, and ultimately you achieve the oneness that you want. You can call it divide into 4 yogas, you can divide into 5 koshas, 8 folds, it's up to you. The truth is that we have to make an effort. If we don't make effort, all of the philosophy is useless. So how about we meditate for 10 minutes, and then we'll open the questions. Does it sound okay? Everybody okay with that? So I'll shut off my recording, and if you have to, because we'll be just meditating.